Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about European alchemy, and I'll divide into three parts. The first part is introduction, the second one is about history, and I will include some important people and taxes. And the final part is about current manifestations. So the first part is introduction. What is alchemy? Alchemy is a kind of thought and ancestor of chemical philosophy in the Middle Ages, which is the rudiment of contemporary chemistry. The main goal is to convert base metals into precious ones, particularly gold. And later, different studies were developed, such as the creation of elixir, the discovery of philosopher's stone, and the creation of homunculus. However, many people who don't have a basic understanding of alchemy think that anyone who does alchemy doesn't understand chemistry. For example, they may say that people cannot make a precious metal out of a base metal, or chemical reactions can form no new elements. And this is just a common sense known even by junior high school children. And one of the most common misconceptions is the idea that alchemy is the Midas touch. That is basically to convert stone into gold. Now I'll talk about the history of alchemy. Alchemy is a name that originated in Europe in the 20th century, and by the 18th century, alchemy had really begun. The early alchemists lived from the 1st to the 5th century AD. The earliest Western work on alchemy was written by Democritus. Alchemy in the West can be traced back to the Hellenistic period. The earliest and most reliable representative figure is Zosimus. Zosimus, who lived from about 350 to 420 AD, believed there was a substance that could magically make desired changes in metals. And there is some relationship between the churches and alchemy. The allure of immortality meant that until the 19th century, when the possibility of chemical gold was not disproved by scientific evidence, there was a huge market for it. And even great scientists like Isaac Newton thought it worth doing experiments on making gold. Many Western kings, like those of China, were intent on achieving longevity through alchemy. At that time, King Henry VI of England hired more than 3,000 alchemists, and the gold-like copper was sent to the mint to be cased into gold coins and shipped to France. And similar gold coins were minted by the French King's Mint and shipped to England. And it was the end of the Middle Ages and the beginning in Florence of an intellectual revolution that was sweeping Europe, and that is the Renaissance. The Renaissance upended the Catholic world, and philosophers had to find other ways to explain it. Some revived the once banned Aristotelianism, and others began to try to reconstruct Plato's ideas, resulting in Neoplatonism. And now I'll talk about some important people and taxes. And the first one is Albertus Magnus. He studied alchemy, astrology, and illusion and wrote a book called On Alchemy, in which he recorded the changes of loam, lead, arsenic, caustic soda, and tartar. And more specifically, equipment such as retort is described. The last edition of his work ran to 38 volumes and was dominated by discussions of theology, physics, and natural history. And the second one is called Thomas von Aquinas, who inherited the ideas of great Albertus, thought of Mercury as the spirit of alchemy and a pure substance. Mercury has played a pivotal role in alchemy since his time. The most famous of his alchemical works is Theological Synthesis, and also he wrote Summa Theologica, which is also really famous. And the third one is called Roger Bacon. He was an avid reader and admirer of scientific experiments. He believed that mercury and sulfur were primordial, as mercury was the father of metals and sulfur the mother of them. Alchemy should be the science of preparing certain elixir, which would instantly transform them into perfection. And moreover, he divided alchemy into two categories, speculative and practical. And now I'll talk about one of the most famous important key terms in alchemy, that is the Philosopher's Stone. Philosopher's Stone, a mythical substance that had long been the holy grail of Western alchemists, thought to transform common base metals into precious ones, especially gold, or to create a philosopher's elixir for immortality. And due to alchemists' unremitting pursuit of this substance, it has been given the title of Great Wonder, Great Creation, and so on. And in some cases, these titles were also used to refer to the markers of the Philosopher's Stone to symbolically represent them at the apex of alchemy. And there are some very famous stories related to Philosopher's Stone. I'll talk about Nicholas Flamel. And he is the only alchemist whose history clearly records him as Philosopher's Stone. And it's in 1382 that he successfully transformed mercury to silver and also mercury to gold. And since these conversions were successful, he became really rich and built several hospitals, chapels, and also some churches. And finally, I'll talk about some current manifestations. In the 18th century, the bourgeois revolution swept the world, and the values of the whole Western society changed fundamentally. The worship of money filled the whole world, and people in the upper class were trapped in the endless pursuit of money, and had no time to pay attention to those ancient cultures. And alchemy seems to be getting lost in the rush. However, by the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th century, capitalists, or the descendants of the first money worshippers, had discovered that there seemed to be more important things in the world than money, and the general curiosity was spreading. And during this period, in order to satisfy the curiosity, some people began to seek out ancient, mysterious things to satisfy them. And one of the very famous story is about the author Edward Waite. He was the most famous of these people. He translated and wrote numerous works on the occult. He also introduced the world to Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. And of course, the most important thing that Waite is known for is his combination of gypsy divination cards with the idea of mysticism. And what is the current role of alchemy in the modern society? It's really controversial because whether it's Nicholas Flamel or Newton's alchemical research, it seems that it's a great conversation piece for curiosity seekers and an enduring moneymaker for novelists and filmmakers. So the future of alchemy is still unknown. Thanks so much.